Dear friends and viewers, Namaste. Welcome back to KNS Biochemistry channel. Hope we are all very well fighting against coronavirus and we'll be very safely coming out of this situation. So with that hope, I'm going to take a topic in this video session. So this is one of the area of proteomics where I'm going to discuss about protein localization. So that is the topic what we are going to see now. Let us start the session now. So in this video session we are going to discuss one of the area of proteomics, that is nothing but protein localization. So this protein localization is very important for subcellular localization of proteins in the cellular activity. So let us see the protein localization now. So subcellular protein localization. What is this subcellular protein localization? If you take any eukaryotic cell, this is a typical eukaryotic cell which is having all the subcellular organelles. Everyone knows that it is having nucleus, endoplasmic reticulum, cytoplasm is there, cytoskeletons are there, ribosomes, mitochondria, Golgi apparatus, everything is there. So the cells of eukaryotic organisms are elaborately divided into functionally. The cells of eukaryotic organisms are elaborately divided into functionally different membrane-bound compartments. That is, subcellular compartments are there. Some major components of eukaryotic cells are the subcellular organelles of the eukaryotic cells are extracellular space, as I said, mitochondria, nucleus, cytoplasm, Golgi apparatus, nucleoplasm, peroxisomes, cytoskeleton, nucleolus, vacuoles, endoplasmic reticulum, ribosomes, and nuclear matrix. So this is a typical cell, and here what are all the activities happening inside the subcellular organs of the cell, and what is the role of proteins located in that area? That is called subcellular protein localization. Suppose if we take a prokaryotic cell, example bacteria. Bacteria also have protein subcellular localizations that can be disconnected when the cell is fractionated. The most generic localizations referred to include the cytoplasm. In case of bacteria, it is the cell wall, which is generally thicker in gram-positive bacteria. Then the cytoplasmic membrane, also referred as the inner membrane of a gram-negative bacteria, and the extracellular environment, the environment outside the bacteria. So most gram-negative bacteria also have an outer membrane and periplasmic space. Compared to eukaryotes, most bacteria, that is prokaryotes, do not have membrane-bound organelles. That is, organelles are there, not there inside the bacteria, because they are all prokaryotes. However, there are some exceptions are there everywhere. Protein subcellular localization is a significant part of bioinformatics based prediction of protein functions and genome annotation, and it can aid the identification of drug targets. So what are all the reasons for localization? So the reasons for localization, that is the purpose for localization, it includes identifying subcellular localization is very important for understanding protein functions, and it is a vital step in genome annotation. So it is having two important that is reasons. One is understanding protein functions inside the subcellular organ. Then for genome annotation also it is important. Next one, abnormal subcellular localization of proteins. that is abnormal subcellular localization of proteins, has been discovered in the cells of a variety of diseases such as Alzheimer's disease or cancer. So you know that what are all the subcellular localization of proteins in normal cell. In the same way, you can identify the functions of these proteins in subcellular organelles in diseased condition, Alzheimer's disease or cancer or any other disease. So knowledge of the subcellular localization of a protein can greatly improve the target identification in the course of drug discovery. So for drug discovery, you must know what are all the abnormal activities happening in a diseased cell. In a diseased cell. So for instance, plasma membrane proteins, the proteins present in the plasma membrane, and secreted proteins are easily accessible by drug molecules due to they are located in the extracellular space or on the cell surface. Reason for this subcellular localization study is bacterial secreted proteins, proteins secreted by bacteria. Bacterial secreted proteins and cell surface are also of interest for their potential as diagnostic targets or as vaccine candidates. Some secreted proteins from archaea that can survive in severe environments have industrially important applications here. Industrially important applications. So what is this protein localization then? How to do this protein localization? In order for subcellular processes to be carried out within defined compartments or cellular regions, that is subcellular organelle compartments, mechanisms must exist to ensure the required protein components are present at that sites and at an adequate concentration also. The accumulation of a protein at a given site is known as protein localization. So some activity, some metabolism is going on in a subcellular compartment, that is called a subcellular process. During that process, what is the mechanism involved for the accumulation of a protein in that particular site, and what is the adequate concentration of that protein needed for localization? So that study is called protein localization study. In that site only you are going to study the protein localization, then it is called the protein localization process. Interestingly, the organization of a cell, suppose if you take any eukaryotic cell, if you see its organization and its various regions do play a role in directing the recruitment of proteins to a given site. For example, in epithelial cells, take any epithelial cells which are polarized, protein composition at the apical membrane is very different from that at the basolateral membrane. So apical membrane is on the top, basolateral is on the bottom. So the composition of protein in both the membranes differs. This is achieved through the recognition of distinct signal sequences that target proteins to each of these regions. For example, apical membrane proteins are very often anchored to GPI. What is this GPI? Glycophosphatidylcholine inositol. Glycophosphatidylcholine, the compound lipid. So these apical membrane proteins are anchored to this glycophosphatidylcholine, while basolateral proteins, they have dileu, that is a N-dimethylleucine or tyrosine amino acid based signature sequences. So they are there in the basolateral proteins. Cytosolic proteins, that is proteins present in the cytoplasm. Cytosolic proteins that are associated with the plasma membranes are often localized based on their interaction with the membrane lipids, that is plasma membrane lipids, such as the membrane lipids, phospholipids are phosphoinositides. Phosphatidylinositol 4,5 biphosphate, that's PIP2. This PIP2 is one of the important phospholipid of the plasma membrane. So this PIP2 is the most abundant phosphoinositide in mammalian cells. So this PIP2 is enriched in certain regions on the membrane, and due to its ability to interact with pH, that is plextrin homology. It's plextrin homology domains of the proteins. It can locally recruit proteins possessing such domains. So FERM, that is FERM, the FERM firm domain containing proteins that link actin with the membrane can also interact with this PIP2, that is phosphatidylinositol bisphosphate. And in addition, cytosolic domains of some transmembrane proteins can attract other proteins present in the cytosol that participate in signaling cascades. So you have cell signaling cascades. So during cell signaling cascades, information comes in the form of chemical signal that goes inside the cell. So it occurs step by step as a cascade. So here you see that some of the transmembrane proteins can attract other proteins present in the cytosol, and those proteins they definitely participate in cell signaling cascades. At that time they will attract it. For example, receptor tyrosine kinases, RTKs. Tyrosine kinases are there in the plasma membrane. They are acting as receptors. So they are called receptor tyrosine kinases, RTKs. These RTKs phosphorylate certain tyrosine residues in the cytosolic domains of the transmembrane proteins upon ligand binding to the extracellular domains. These phosphorylated tyrosines attract proteins possessing SH2, that is SRC homology group, that is SH2, or PTB, phosphotyrosine binding site or binding domains. So PTB domains which comprise a signaling complex. Then the curvature of membranes can also enrich proteins of certain permissible sizes and mechanical properties. For example, a transmembrane proteins with conical shape, that is transmembrane proteins present in the plasma membrane, if they have a shape that is conical like shape, such as nicotinic acetylcholine receptor. So this nicotinic acetylcholine receptor is a transmembrane protein present in the plasma membrane. It is having conical shape. Okay, this that is a receptor prefer curved regions in the membrane, as this relaxes the membrane tension and shape. Shorting of membrane constituents that prefer curvature has been observed in the Golgi cisternæ rims, thus reducing mechanical stress in the flatter cisternal regions. Here you can see that this is the cytoplasm in this picture, and you see that this is ribosome is involved in protein synthesis. Signal peptide, this is signal recognition peptide, the violet colored one, and this is the N-terminal end which is coming out. This protein is synthesis, this is mRNA, this is plasma membrane. You have a membrane, transmembrane translocation channel is there. This is a protein is there. So this is actually endoplasmic reticulum, the lumen of the endoplasmic reticulum, where protein synthesis takes place. Ribosomes are involved in that. So here you see that protein synthesis starts here. See the second picture. This SRP comes close here. This SRP comes here. There is a receptor to receive the signal from this SRP, signal recognition that particle. So SRP receptor comes close to this. And the third stage, you can see that this SRP binds with the SRP receptor. At the same time, ribosome is also comes close to this translocation area. And you see that once this SRP binds with the receptor, the receptor ligand complex will be formed. So there will be a change in the membrane potential, and this channel will open. You see that the growing polypeptide comes outside, and this N-terminal region of the growing polypeptide, it goes and binds with the space. That is, this is the ribosome, this is mRNA, and this is the growing peptide, and this is the signal sequence. The signal sequence here, you can see that signal sequence is here, and that is going to bind with this SRP, and SRP then binds with the receptor. Okay, so this signal peptide later on is inserted inside the plasma, that is lipid bilayer. Then you see that this entire polypeptide is released from the ribosome, and it is detached from the ribosome, and it is released outside the lumen of the endoplasmic reticulum, outside the lumen. So entire activity happens here. Who is actually responsible for this process to proceed and finally to detach the polypeptide from the endoplasmic reticulum lumen? This SRP. Without this protein, these activities will not happen. So this SRP protein, the localization of this SRP protein in this endoplasmic reticulum transmembrane area is very, very important. So this protein localization study is required. It is required. Without that, we cannot understand that mechanism. So this is called a protein localization. The same thing is what I explained. SRP, signal recognition particle, SRP that interacts with the signal sequence as soon as it emerges from the ribosomal polypeptide exit tunnel. That is shown in the picture. In eukaryotes, peptide elongation passes upon SRP ribosome nascent chain complex formation. So once the complex is formed, the complex is then targeted to the endoplasmic membrane by the interaction with the SRP receptor. It binds with the SRP receptor. GTP binding to SRP, and SRP receptor is a prerequisite for SRP receptor complex formation. So once that complex is formed, following the complex formation, see that SRP receptor complex dissociates from the peptide due to GTP hydrolysis. The growing peptide is gradually transferred via the protein conducting channel, that is called the translocane channel, into the endoplasmic reticular lumen. Usually signal sequences are cleaved off co-translationally by signal peptidases, that is S-spaces, signal peptidases, and the resulting cleaved signal sequences are termed signal peptides. So your polypeptide comes outside. That is enters into the lumen of the endoplasmic reticulum. The next one is that is used in protein localization studies, directed delivery of components. Directed delivery of components. In that place, the protein concentration localization happens. So in that also you can have protein localization studies. So under direct delivery of components, protein localization can result from the recognition of passively diffusing soluble proteins or protein complexes. However, this may not guarantee a sufficient concentration of components to maintain a given process. This can impede its completion, particularly when carried out in regions with a limited cytoplasmic volume, such as the tip of a philopodia, or when components are rapidly turned over. So a more efficient way of maintaining the concentration of these protein components is by their directed delivery via the cytoskeletal network. So they are directly delivered through the cytoskeletal network. So the cytoskeleton, which is comprised of actin filaments, because cytoskeleton will have actin and microtubules. Actin filaments and microtubules spans the entire cell and connects the plasma membrane to the nucleus and other organelles. These filaments perform many purposes, from providing structural support to the cell to generating the forces required for cell translocation. So they may also serve as tracks on which motor proteins can translocate as they carry cargo from one location to another location. So these are all analogous to a freight train transporting cargo along a network of railway tracks. So it is going to act, the cytoskeleton is going to act like a railway track, and these proteins are traveling, then they are translocating from one place to another place. So here protein localization happens. So protein recruitment is essentially a form of protein recognition made possible by the presence of specific amino acid sequences within the protein structure. So for example, many membrane bound proteins, proteins present on the plasma membrane, they carry signal peptides that are recognized by signal receptors that guide them to the target site. So the nuclear localization signal, the signal which goes to the nucleus is called nuclear localization signal, is one such example. So proteins that are destined for the endoplasmic reticulum also carry a signal peptide. Then only they will go to that place and give the signal. In other cases, proteins may carry a signal patch. This usually consists of about 30 amino acids that are not present in a linear sequence but are in close spatial proximity in the three-dimensional space. So the delivery of these protein components is primarily facilitated by ATP, GTP driven molecular motors such as myosin versus myosin X, that is myosin V and myosin X, and the other one is kinesin or dynein. Kinesin, dynein are there in the microtubules. So these proteins or homologous of them have been observed in a multitude of cell types including yeast, plant cell and animal cells. The molecular motors present in microtubules, dynein and kinesin, they walk on microtubules. You have seen that walking of these kinesin and dynein on microtubules, while myosin walks on actin filaments in muscle cells. Expectedly, these motors, that is these walking motors, these motors walk in a unidirectional manner, although not necessarily in the same direction as each other. So they will move in unidirectional from one end to other end. So there also we are studying this protein localization studies. The next one is communication pathways, that is cell signaling pathways. That is called communication pathways. In cell signaling pathways, as I said earlier, these protein localization studies are very important. So in communication pathways, with the different processes being carried out in separate subcellular compartments organized across different regions of the cell, intracellular communication is paramount. Intracellular communication between the cells is very, very important. Such communication, which is described in greater detail under cell signaling, because under cell signaling, if you study, you can see that how cells are communicating with each other. That's called cell signaling. That cell signaling allows cells to maintain the concentration of specific proteins and within the correct regions, depending on the requirements of a given process or a cell state. This ultimately ensures individual compartments function efficiently and enables one subcellular process to drive another subcellular process. This ultimately allows a cell to facilitate its primary functions in an efficient and coherent manner. So all cells have surface receptors. That cell surface receptors are there on the plasma membrane. And other proteins, all cells have surface receptors and other proteins to facilitate sensing of signals from the extracellular environment. So these signals can be in the form of ions, that is signals, cellular signals, they may be in the form of ions, small molecules, that's chemical molecules, peptides, shear stress, some stress on the plasma membrane, mechanical forces applied on the plasma membrane, heat transfer on the plasma membrane, etc. Once the signal is sensed by the surface receptor, it is transmitted to the cytoplasm, usually by means of conformational change which happens in the receptor, or there is some conformational change happens in its phosphorylation status. Change in its phosphorylation status on the cytosolic side of the cell. This in turn triggers a downstream signaling cascade. Downstream signaling cascade, that is signal goes down, step down, that is called downstream signaling cascade, which very often culminates in the nucleus. The signal usually results in change in gene expression profile of the cells, assisting them to respond to the stimulus. That stimulus is the signal. So this subcellular localization critically influences protein functions, as we have seen in the previous examples, and cells control protein localization to regulate biological processes. So here you see that a dynamic organellar maps are developed. Organellar map. Suppose one organelle is doing some activity, some biological process. So at that time, what are all the control of proteins or localization of protein happens during that time. For that, a dynamic map is drawn using software, bioinformatics software. So that dynamic organellar maps are highly useful to study about protein localization. So it is a proteomic method, because softwares are involved, bioinformatics softwares are involved in that proteomic method that allows global mapping of protein translocation events during that biological process. So initially these maps are used, so statistically used to generate a database with localization and absolute copy number information for over 8,700 proteins from HeLa cells, that is HeLa cancer cells. During the cancer development in HeLa cells, over 8,700 abnormal proteins are accumulated, localized in that area. That can be studied by that map. So approaching comprehensive coverage of that process. All major organelles were resolved here with exceptional prediction accuracy. Prediction accuracy is estimated at it is greater than 92%. So combining spatial and abundance information yielded an unprecedented quantitative view of HeLa cell anatomy and organellar composition at the protein level. So subsequently demonstrated the dynamic capabilities of the approach by capturing translocation events following EGF, epidermal growth factor stimulation, which we integrated into a quantitative model. So this dynamic organellar maps enable the proteome-wide analysis of physiological protein movements during biological process without requiring any reagents, because here you need not take that cell components and put it in test tube, adding reagents, then finding out the protein localization, finding out the concentration of protein. All these things, if you are doing manually in the laboratory, it will take time, it will take a lot of reagents involved in that. So all these things are not required in organelle maps. It is done by bioinformatics software. So here, without requiring any reagents specific to the investigated process, and will thus be widely applicable in cell biology. So without reagents, without taking even a test tube, you see that organelle maps can be drawn in cell biology. So you can have protein localization studies. Here you can see that one protein localization, one example, protein localization study done using proteome, that is using bioinformatics software. This is a map, a proteome wide map, subcell barcode, proteome wide mapping of protein localization and re-localization. So this is done inside a cell. See that this is the protein localization events, graphical events. This is cell fractionation and MS sample preparation. Cell fractionated, MS sample is prepared, so it goes into the MS protein ID identification and quantification. Then you will get the peaks for that protein fragments. Protein fractionation protein profile is here, MS result, and that can be put into the computer software. Classification of protein localization happens here. Then protein subcellular barcode is given to proteins. Each protein will be given, that fragments will be given some number 1, 2, 4, 1, 8 is that is barcode. So S1, S2, S3, S4 all fragments with barcode. And I see that what is happening there in the secretory vesicle, what is happening there inside the mitochondria, M1, M2 proteins, what is happening there inside the cytosol, C1, C2, C3, C4, C5, these are all the proteins involved in that process. Then the splice variant localization is that is studied in the nucleus. Then complex member localization is done here in small microtubule, and here in the cytosol, here protein relocalization analysis is done here, and inside the nucleus domain dependent localization is done. That subcellular barcode is given, that is called proteome wide resources. So here you see that this mapping of protein localization is done, the authors who have done it. Then here you see that the use of mass spectrometry to map this protein localization. So use of mass spectrometry to map the subcellular localization of more than 12,000 proteins across several cell lines and present a method for proteome-wide relocalization analysis. So this study provides information about the spatial organization of the proteome and an accessible resource for protein localization. Subcellular barcode is also given. So highlights of this mapping: robust method for proteome-wide subcellular localization analysis is done. Resource for subcellular localization of around 12,418 proteins in multiple cell lines is done. Analysis of protein domain and variant associated localization is done. Global analysis of protein relocalization delivery by EGFR inhibition is also done. So this is a mapping, proteome-wide mapping. This is also another map. Subcellular fractionation is done. Quantitative mass spectrometry study is done, and the classification of subcellular localization. An overview. See that the steps are involved A, and MS study is done, MS study is done B, and then peptide ID and the relative quantification of the subcellular fractionation of a protein profile is done, and that the details are given here. C and the D, you can see they are run, identified, the fractions are done by 2D electrophoresis or any other methods. Then PCA, all fractionation 5 cell lines, they are separated and the details are collected. And here you see that clusters of the protein, they are located in the subcellular organs and their details are given by software. Signal compartment classified. See that signal compartment where how many proteins are involved and their details are given graphical way, and this is compartment classified. See that pie diagram, in which each compartment how many percentage of proteins are involved in that process. So that is given in pie chart. This is bar chart. So the entire genome map, this protein localization map is given. See that step by step, starting from here, starting from A, MS study, then isolation, purification, then bar diagram or this pie diagram is given. So this is protein localization mapping. Friends, so in this session we have discussed about protein localization. We have seen what is protein localization and the importance of protein localization, and in the importance of this one in various subcellular organelles of the cell, that is especially in eukaryotes. Hope you have understood the topic. With that, I am going to end this session. I'll be coming back with you with some other topic. Until then, it's bye from KNS Biochemistry. Bye bye. Thank you very much. Namaskar.